Hi guys, my name is Bobby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you my July TBR. Hopefully this is a little bit more even. I think I found a way to make it so it's not so tilty. Again, still trying to mess around and figure out what works. I probably should turn off my fan because I'm pretty sure you can hear it. Okay, that's better. Hopefully I don't get interrupted. Danielle has left. She went to go see a friend, go have a sleepover. So Lucas may come in and out. Hopefully this will be quick so that I can get this up. June has been an interesting month. Not quite done. Still struggling with my reading. So my July TBR is it's pretty small because I kind of want to leave myself open to mood reading. I found lately that if I really want to read, the thought of picking up a book is really daunting. Like just the thought of picking something up and starting it. It's like I want to be set right in the middle of the book when I already know all the beginning crap and the get to know you crap and I'm right in the middle of the action. That's kind of what I want. And you can't do that. You have to start reading it from the beginning. And it doesn't help that I spent all month reading The Way of Kings, which is ginormous. That's a book hangover it's partly because it was good and partly because of its immense size. But I'll get into that in my June wrap up. Let's get into the July TBR. So this isn't a 30-minute TBR video because that is ridiculous. So speaking of Way of Kings, the first book I'm going to read in the month of July, gotta keep remembering July, is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 2 in the Stormlight Archive. Brittany from Books with Brittany is continuing on the group buddy read she has a Discord and all that stuff, which has been really nice because you can talk to people. There's a whole bunch of people who are doing it as a reread, getting ready for the 4th book that's coming out at the end of the year. And a lot of us are reading it for the first time. So it's nice reading a 1,000-page book with other people, especially with how dense it is. So Words of Radiance, not really sure what it's about. Obviously it's book 2. It's continuing on the Stormlight Archive. From what I understand, book 2 focuses mostly on Shallan, and it's mostly about her story and a lot about her, whereas book 1 focused a lot on Kaladin, and I believe book 3 is a lot about Dalinar. It's just kind of how it is. I mean, everybody has their own perspectives in said books, but there's more heavy focus on a certain character in each one. So I believe this is Shallan and Jasna's story, or Yasna, and kind of them together and all that stuff. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to get into it. It's daunting. It's a very dense read. I just bought Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. They should be here tomorrow, I think, because I bought them very quickly because I wanted the hardcover to match the beautiful hardcover Way of Kings that Cody got me. And yeah, I could wait till my birthday because July is my birthday month. My birthday is July 10th. So, I could have just waited, but I've learned over the years that now that I'm older, birthdays don't really mean as much anymore, or at least in my world. My husband is about the only one that ever gets me anything for my birthday. So other than that, like I just buy stuff for myself. Last year I spent my entire birthday in the car coming back from California. So anything is better than being stuck in a car for the entirety of your birthday. Next on my list is one that was kind of brought to my attention by a couple of subscribers. When I first started my channel 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years ago in August, I started by rereading all of Richard Layman's books. And the point of this was to reread them as an adultier adult, because when I first read them, I was in my late teens, very early 20s. And Richard Layman is a horror author, a very, what they call splatterpunk horror author. He kind of fits in that genre. Very, 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 very graphic horror. Very violent. He really has a thing about sexual assault. It's kind of like one of his favorite go-tos that there's all the women, almost every single woman is sexually assaulted in some way while they're in the process of being murdered or attacked or whatever. It's very much 80s horror author-esque in the way he does it. He doesn't write women all that well. I mean, they're not terrible. Some of his main characters are female, but they're always being chased by a bad guy that wants to rape them. It's kind of how it is. It's the genre, and it's very much the kind of horror author he is, which doesn't always bother me. I mean, it's horror. I always take horror with a grain of salt because horror is supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be terrifying. It's supposed to be gross. That's kind of how I like my horror. And I realized that I had stopped reading Richard Layman. I can't even remember when the last time I read one of his books was. It was probably over a year ago now, which is kind of unacceptable because the whole point was I rebought them all and dug out the copies that I did have so that I could start the reread and reread them in publication order. And I think the reason I had stopped is because when I first read him the first time, I didn't read a lot of his earlier books. I read most of the stuff from the 90s, which is still really graphic and violent, and he uses the word rump a lot in reference to somebody's ass, which is kind of weird. He's obsessed with that word. But I started to realize as I was reading the old ones, they weren't that good, and they weren't like the ones I read in the 90s that I absolutely liked and loved. Like my favorite books of his were all done in the mid to late 90s, which I think the first one comes up in the rotation and within the next 2 or 3 books, and it was in 91. But I looked, and this is the next one on my list, and I do remember reading this. I just can't remember how old I was. Maybe 18, 19, something like that. I think it was 18 or 19 when I got into Richard Layman. So I believe that's when I read it. And from what I remember, it's very, very graphic like normal. And my copy is super, super old. But that's Funland by him. So I had a subscriber reach out to me on Twitter. A couple others had too. I think through YouTube comments and stuff like that, going, what happened to your Richard Layman reviews and stuff like that. And it's just because I haven't picked him up. I think reading those older books that I really didn't like The Beast House and Beware and stuff like that, I was just like, oh my God, this is trash. And forgetting that I had to get through the shit to get to the ones that I liked and that are better. This one, from what I remember, is good, but also graphic and kind of stupid, but I don't think it's as stupid as the other ones. So this takes place in a Funland in the summertime, so it's appropriate. It's about a group called the Trolls who at night, if you're in the Funland anytime at night, they will attack and kill and torture you. He's very much torture porn. And there's a group of kids that decide to fight back against them. I like that it takes place in a carnival-like setting, stuff like that. I enjoy stories like that. I just remember that I liked this one, but it wasn't as good as some of the other ones. And I remember just going like this, and I saw the word rump twice. So we know it's going to be rump filled. But I'm excited to get back into it and like try to do my reviews. I may not do it every month like I have been or I did in the past, but at least try to get back on track on doing it because I started doing it and people are asking for it. So I'm going to read this one in July. Next, well, I got to figure out how to hold this. I'm going to tackle Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This is a horror manga about spirals. So this is read, backwards because that's how manga is read. Becca, thank you for telling me how to read manga. She commented on my haul and told me how to read manga properly because that was one of my biggest things. I don't know how to read it. So she told me, so I'm excited to get into this because this won't take me very long to read it. It's a manga comic. So hopefully I can get this one read and, kind of keep the horror theme going. And being my first manga, I'm excited. I've heard nothing but good things about Junji Ito. And I'm trying to give myself easier books to read because Words of Radiance is going to be a big, huge one. Richard Layman's always really easy to read through. Manga, graphic novels, comic books are always really easy to read through as well. So I'm hoping that this will help propel my reading along. Next on my list is one of my book of the month picks that I'm trying really hard to read more of my book of the month books because they keep piling up and I need to read them. Like, what's the point in getting them and buying them if you're not going to read them? And so I decided to put one on my TBR. I may switch it out with something else because, again, mood reading. But I decided Fleischman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodesser Anchor. I probably butchered her last name. But this was one of the extras you could put on that was like a genre fiction. Yeah, it just says literary reads. So it wasn't like a month pick or anything like that. This tells the story of Toby Fleischman, and he separates from his wife of like 12 or 15 years, something like that. They have 2 kids. And going through all of that and having to deal with that, and then she disappears. And I don't think it's a mystery. It's more of like how he survives and how he's dealing with the fact that his wife or his ex-wife has disappeared and having to raise his kids on his own and all that kind of stuff. It's a literary fiction. So I really like family drama-ish stories. So I'm hoping I'll like this one. The only problem I have with family dramas is a lot of the time they end up starting out really slow, and by the time you get to the good stuff, it's usually past the point where I would have DNF'd it. Or I just get really bored because nothing's happening. But I figure I'll give this one a go. We'll see how it goes. I've struggled a lot with literary works this month, like trying to pick them up, and they're just like, not working for me. I've been kind of in a thriller fantasy-like mood, but I need to get some of this shit read. Last one that I'm going to put on my TBR, which I really, really need to read. It's been on my TBR, like, kind of carried over for like 3 or 4 months, and I still haven't fucking picked it up. And that's City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a fantasy that's about Jinn, and I've heard nothing but good things. It's supposed to be like absolutely fabulous. I think it takes place in Cairo, so in Egypt, which I love anything Egypt. Egyptology and anything that deals with ancient Egyptians and stuff is some of my favorite things in history. So I'm sure I'll probably really love this book. I've had it for a while. I just haven't picked it up. And I don't know why. It's like one of those ones where I look at it and go, oh, I need to read that. But something else, something else always seems better or whatever. And I just never pick it up. So I'm going to pick it up this month. I'm going to read it. I need to get this one read. So please hold me accountable if I don't read it in July. Okay, guys, that's it. That is my July TBR. I'm trying to give myself more room to mood read because, again, I'm really struggling to stick to my TBR and struggling to read in general because everything else in the past couple of months, between work stress and world stress, and Matt and I are trying to buy a house. We're in the process of trying to find a place and do all that stuff. That is super stressful. There's just a lot going. Oh, and then my dad. We just have a lot going on in my life. And when I'm really stressed out, reading is the last thing I want to do, because reading is one of those things where I really need to focus and be able to totally lose myself in the world. And when I've got too much going on, I find it really hard to do that. It's easier for me to zone out binge watching a TV show I've watched every single episode of. That to me is easier than getting into a book. And I'm trying, like I have read this month. I'm trying really hard. I'll get through it. It's just one of those things. So I'm with these main four or five, because Words of Radiance, and then I will see how things go and then just add and subtract stuff as I go. We'll just kind of go in with the flow for July.